Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are taking a fully spoilerly look at Transformers Earthspark Season 1, Episode 15 or 14 or 16. You know what I mean. Warzone. Oh, sweet animators. This is poignant. The emotional punch that this episode packs is just beyond words. And the animation is glorious. And it's not just the high octane combat scenes, though those are amazing. The visual direction, what they chose to show and how they showed it, created this sense of reverence and honoring the past. If you've ever been to the tomb of the unknown soldier, any country, with a veteran of one of the wars represented therein, if you've ever stood there with them and watched grown men silently break down crying as they change the guard, that is the incredibly powerful sensation that this episode manages to capture. And this episode could have gone so wrong if it was handled poorly. When you try to capture that level of emotional resonance, when it's one of those deep, complex emotions with layers of reality burying it down, it can go so wrong. It can so easily come off as narmy or cheesy. If I had to rate this episode, I'd say it was a 9.5 out of 10. Why not a perfect 10? Because, it came close. It came close. It fell kind of flat at the end, and it was a pretty big flub. But there's so much right in this show. I'll talk about that at the end. So anyway, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, go check out a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird. I have the data available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, yada yada yada. Anyway, Warzone. So I grew up going to national parks, both the big wild ones full of animals and the somber memorials. And my dad loved history. He was such a history buff, and he was always dragging us off to these memorials. And I do remember the first time I went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and we watched the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And honestly, I was too young to appreciate it on an intellectual level. I was standing there quietly holding my dad's hand, watching the changing of the guard, hearing the click, click, click of the heels, and everybody was so quiet. And I just got the sensation that there was something powerful here. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't see it. I couldn't understand it, but I could feel it all around me, like this atmosphere to the place. And then, as I grew older, as I learned about the memorial wall for the Vietnam War, and we went and visited those places, it really starts to sink in as you get older and you understand. And this episode just perfectly captured from the very ambiance and the way the reflections catch in these memorials and the way the rougher reflections absorb the light. And, okay, what am I talking about? Okay, plot of the episode. Megatron takes the kids on a field trip. They get a history lesson. Things go spectacularly wrong. Combat, yada, yada, yada. For this episode, well, first of all, the episode recognizes active human combat deaths in a battle, which was pretty remarkable for any Transformers animated children's show. But Megatron ends up taking the kids to the memorial. And at first, just like most of us were, they don't get it. Even though Robbie and Mo have been there before with her mom, and their mom fought at the battle that this is memorialized. It's called Space Bridge Memorial Park, where the final battle of the Autobot-Decepticon War was fought on Earth. And the artists took what they knew of all of these memorials and put them into creating a fictional memorial, a fictional national park. And from the beginning, I've said that Dorothy Malto's uniform was that of a national park ranger, not a Pennsylvania State Park ranger. And there is someone, I'm pretty sure it's Malowinski, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who just has a love of and a dedication to national parks that extends down to these fascinating minute details. Because he's not just copying an existing thing. He's taking elements from all of the monuments. I think I've been to all of the big national monuments in DC and the surrounding areas. And he took elements of all of them, the Vietnam Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and he put them together in a perfectly logical, coherent way to represent, yes, how the national parks would build a memorial to a battle like that. And there's a wall that's clearly represented to having the names of everyone who'd fallen. Yes, I went through and tried to translate some of them. It's random letters of the alphabet in Cybertronian. I was deeply disappointed. That is like point one of the points that I took off. They didn't actually take the time to put real Cybertronian names up there. It's just randomized letters. And you got to see how Megatron's memorial has been defaced because, the Decepticons were not pleased with what he did. And this is all framed by two flashbacks that reuse a lot of animation. I'm not taking any points off for that. That was glorious animation to the battle itself. And you get a glimpse of Lieutenant Malto during the battle. And you get to see this just classic Autobot Decepticon battle done in high resolution CGI that is just alive and flowing. And I cannot stress enough how awesome the animation was. Okay, so battle, what do you call it? Bookending the scene. Then you have the kids in the memorial, and they do a really, really great speech. And that speech from Megatron, it felt like, it wasn't like a national park ranger giving the tour. It was like the thing that your uncle told you, the thing that your father told you when he took you to the memorial, when he explained what he had experienced. It's your grandpa giving you that sad smile and telling you that he's not coming with you to the fireworks display because he saw all the fireworks he ever needed to on Iwo Jima. The actor, the voice actors, the animators for Megatron, they all just came together. And this is just a beautiful way to honor all of those past and fallen. And that wasn't even the main point of the episode. I nearly started crying. I'm almost crying now. Watching this, thinking about this, mulling over this, I think of my grandpa, I think of my uncles. Grandpa was World War II. My uncles were Vietnam. My dad was Vietnam era. My mom was Vietnam era. This is just such a brilliant episode that I'd actually hesitate to show it to my dad for fear of what it would do to him. All right. I'm rambling. The emotional impact of this simple history lesson that Megatron is giving the kids, it hits. It hits good. And if that was the entire episode, I think we all would have been satisfied. But there's another 10 minutes to get through at the end of that. And during the flashback scene, we saw that Megatron had confronted Shockwave. Now, this is something that I'm not taking points off. This wasn't one of the points I took points off, but Shockwave is different in this iteration from what he is in almost every other iteration from G1 to IDW. And there's elements in here from IDW, but I'll let you discover that on your own. But Shockwave is different. Let's just say if the same thing happened to Shockwave in this iteration as it did in previous iterations, well, the Senate lackeys missed a few things when they tried to yank him out. Anyway, Shockwave is the combat antagonist of this episode. Megatron and he duke it out, mano a mano, missile the cannon. And then during the battle, we start getting C.S. Lewis references, and you know how happy that made me. It was more specifically Narnia references. That the other one might have been a Tolkien reference, but this is just, I like to leave some things to the imagination, but this is the full spoiler episode. You know what it was going in. You have the redeemed character who had previously betrayed everyone going and fighting the White Witch and destroying, or rather not destroying. I wonder if that's symbolic. But anyway, the character who had a change of heart destroys the White Witch ability to turn people to stone and enables everybody who was turned to stone to be released. And I think this is a Lewis and a Tolkien reference all bundled into one, but there's definitely strong Chronicle of Narnia vibes all through this. So far, other than the fact that Shockwave's personality has changed dramatically, and I don't count that as a negative. It's different, but with each iteration, you learn to accept different presentations of the characters. So everything I've said so far has been A+++. The animation, the story, the visual, just the ambiance of the place. It's all glorious. So what was the problem? Megatron is building up with this history lesson and the combat. Everything in the show, in this episode, is designed to set off Megatron's final bit of advice, his wisdom that he shares with the next generation. Because that's a theme running through the whole episode, sharing the wisdom for the next generation so they don't make your same mistakes. And the writers just flubbed it. It's like going to a 4-star restaurant and they bring you out a Pop-Tart. You're going to a 5-star restaurant having this amazing dinner and they bring you out a cold Pop-Tart, not even on a plate. They just toss a box of Pop-Tarts on your table and say, knock yourself out, which would be a pretty cool story in of itself. But anyway, Megatron, and the whole point of Megatron's lesson is that when they go out in the world, they need to be able to defend themselves, but they also need to be able to show compassion, understand the other point of view, and move forward in the world without resorting to the violence that destroyed the Autobots and the Decepticons. But instead of offering them any practical advice, he just says, don't do what we did, do better. Which might be realistic. I mean, when you're breaking that cycle of generational trauma and violence, the previous generation doesn't always know what you should do to take the next step. But given how great the rest of the episode was, given how much of this episode goes to set up that final moment of advice, it just kind of falls flat. Do better. Like, yeah? How? I mean, these are children. What are you actually telling them to do? Do you have any practical advice? And I just think that was really disappointing. Now, the show could, I guess, retroactively turn it around and have, like, Megatron admit that he did not know. He is still trying to put his own life together and he didn't feel qualified to offer them any advice. Because there's so many C.S. Lewis references in here, I'm going to tack on a bit of C.S. Lewis advice. And while I was preparing for this episode, to prepare myself for it emotionally after the last episode, I ended up just accidentally casually listening to an old lecture that C.S. Lewis used to give that boiled down to take the plank out of your own eye before you try to remove the fleck from your brother's. And the speech by C.S. Lewis was all about everybody around you has some fatal flaw that just makes your life miserable, makes your life way harder than it should be. And even if you talk to them about it, they're probably going to still keep doing it. And there's nothing you can do about it. And the conclusion of C.S. Lewis's speech on this, and this is the conclusion of 99% of the great wise men and women of Earth's history. You can't do anything about your brother, your sister. You can't change them. The only one you can change, and this is so much harder, is yourself. And you have to look inward at the evil, at the injustice that lies within your own heart, and work on correcting that. And when you're talking about this, what Megatron is talking about, reaching out to other people and doing better, recognizing your own weaknesses, focusing on fighting to claw your way out of your own personal pits. That's really the only way to move forward. Make yourself better, and you'll make the world better. And I think that is the proper lesson that should have gone in that final spot. But this episode was just so great in so many other ways. This was a brilliant episode. It was deep. It was well written. It brings in elements. Nothing from the previous episodes was wasted. It all goes pouring into this episode, from Nightshade's semi-autistic behavior to hashtags electronics obsession, to Jawbreaker's quiet observational inquisitiveness, to Robbie and Mo's history. It just all comes together. And I have been rumbling for 16 minutes. I am going to pull this video apart in so many other videos. And I'm left wondering, how can one show produce two such vastly different episodes, both on a theme that is dear to my heart? The previous episode I'm talking about was the Mother's Day episode. And that was about ecology and preserving the environment. And it was just repulsive to me. And this one, which is not about the natural side of parks preservation, but is about the memorial side of parks preservation, which is also near and dear to me, is just glorious. I mean, obviously the answer is they had different writers, but how did the same showrunners let them out? All right, what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Can you please find some flaws in this episode? It is just unbelievable that an episode this good could come out of a children's cartoon show. Find me some errors, put them down. Find me something wrong with this episode, put it down in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my books, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.